Kenneth Martin was a cheerful man, well known for his outgoing personality. He worked at an appliance company, supervising the repair department. His trustworthy nature and stable income allowed his 48-year-old wife, Barbara Martin, to be a homemaker, focusing on raising their 3 daughters, Barbie, Virginia, and Susan. Barbie, the eldest at 14, was a freshman at Grant High School, but the Martins also had a son, Donald, who was quite a bit older than his sisters. At 28, he worked as a pharmacist's mate in the U.S. Navy, assigned to the Marine Corps and stationed at Fort Schuyler, New York, almost the opposite end of the country. His location would become an important detail in this story later on. Meanwhile, back in Oregon, Kenneth and Barbara had attended a Christmas party the night before, so they took their time waking up the next morning, enjoying a quiet breakfast with their daughters. Around 10:30 a.m. they had visitors. Mr. and Mrs. Evans, Barbara's cousins, stopped by with their 7-year-old daughter and her friend. While the adults caught up, the children played together, making for a pleasant morning. The Evans family didn't stay long, though. They were on their way to a Sunday dinner and even invited the Martins to join them. That invitation could have completely altered the course of what was to come, but Kenneth and Barbara declined, saying they had other plans. They wanted to take the girls out along the highway to forage for greenery, fresh branches and plants they could use to make Christmas decorations together later that evening. And so the families went their separate ways. Sometime between 1 and 2 p.m., the Martins piled into their family car and set off on their outing. This wasn't unusual for them. Relatives would later recall how much the family enjoyed spending time together, especially outdoors. They often took trips, driving around, hiking, or simply walking in nature. December 7, 1958, seemed like just another one of those days. At around 4 p.m., the Martins were seen at a gas station in Cascade Locks, about 64 kilometers, 40 miles, from their home. A little later, they stopped for a meal at the Paradise Snack Bar in Hood River, another 32 kilometers, 20 miles down the road. No one reported anything unusual, no signs of distress, no suspicious behavior from anyone around them. But the following day, their absence was impossible to ignore. Kenneth didn't show up for work. The girls never arrived at school. Concern quickly turned to alarm, and by 11 p.m. on Monday night, police were at the Martin home. But inside, nothing seemed out of place. Magazines lay scattered where the girls had been reading the day before. Breakfast dishes sat drying on the kitchen rack. A load of laundry was clean and waiting in the washing machine. But the house was empty, the family car was gone, and no one had heard from the Martins since the Evans family left them the previous morning. The neighbors hadn't seen them return. It was as if Kenneth had driven off with his family that Sunday afternoon, and they had simply vanished. Fearing the worst, police quickly began searching the area and the nearby highway where the Martins had last been seen, but what they found only deepened the mystery. There was no sign of the family's car, but they did discover an abandoned and stolen white Chevrolet, registered to an address in Los Angeles. More disturbingly, a bloody gun and a woman's glove were found discarded in the bushes nearby. At first, investigators didn't focus much on the Chevrolet. It didn't match the description of the Martins' vehicle, which was a cream and red Ford station wagon. But that changed when forensic analysis of the gun revealed a startling connection. The serial number traced it back to a Meyer and Frank grocery store. It was among the items that Donald Martin had been accused of stealing 2 years earlier while working there. Though Donald had an ironclad alibi, he was stationed in New York at the time. This discovery linked the abandoned Chevrolet to the family's disappearance, giving police a new lead to pursue. Seeing the dried blood on the gun, investigators feared the worst. They began monitoring the family's bank accounts, hoping to detect any withdrawals that might suggest they were still alive, or perhaps track their attackers. But there was no activity, reinforcing a grim theory. The very next day, 2 arrests were made in Hood County in connection with the stolen vehicle. The suspects were 2 ex-convicts, an unnamed man and another named Roy Light. Authorities believed the men had gotten rid of the Martins but had been caught before they could drain the family's accounts. As investigators dug deeper, the connection between the stolen Chevrolet, the missing Martins, and the 2 suspects became more compelling. Their suspicions were strengthened when a waitress from the Paradise Snack Bar came forward with new information. She recognized Roy Light and recalled seeing both ex-convicts at the restaurant the same night as the Martins. More importantly, she remembered that the 2 men left shortly after the family did. With this new lead, police increased the pressure on Roy Light and his accomplice, hoping to extract a confession. But the men remained tight-lipped, offering no new information about the missing family. Despite strong suspicions, investigators lacked hard evidence, and complicating matters further, reports of Martin family sightings continued to pour in, some credible enough to make authorities reconsider their theory. If these sightings were accurate, then the family was still alive. It was just a matter of finding them. With no bodies, no clear crime scene, and no physical evidence definitively linking the suspects to foul play, authorities had no choice but to release Roy Light and his accomplice without charging them in connection with the Martins' disappearance. In the months following the disappearances, one of the largest searches in Oregon's history uncovered hundreds of new leads. Over 200 of them came in as letters sent to the police, each containing information that witnesses hoped would lead to the recovery of the missing family. Investigators followed up on every lead, but over time, they all went cold. By February 1959, the case had come to a screeching halt. The most significant lead they had uncovered did little to inspire confidence. A volunteer had discovered car tracks leading off a cliff near the Dahl. Upon closer inspection, investigators determined that the tracks could have belonged to a Ford station wagon. Further searching revealed paint chips in the area, which were sent to the FBI for analysis. The results confirmed that the paint matched the type used on the same model of station wagon owned by the Martins. Determined to follow up on this lead, investigators ordered the Bonneville Dam to be lowered by 5 feet, allowing divers and sonar equipment to scour the waters. But after an exhaustive search, nothing was found. The Martin family remained missing. Then, on May 1st, a river drilling rig near the Dallas reported that its anchor had snagged something heavy beneath the water. Before they could retrieve it, the anchor broke free. The following day, a couple reported seeing what appeared to be 2 bodies floating near Cascade Locks. Investigators responded immediately, and soon after, they found the badly decomposed body of a young girl on the riverbank. Identifying her wouldn't be easy. Her face and body were too deteriorated for a visual match, but investigators used her clothing and a dental examination to confirm her identity. She was 11-year-old Susan Martin. The family's dentist was able to match the fillings in her teeth to his records, stating that it was highly unlikely for anyone else to have the exact same fillings in the same locations. The identification was confirmed. With Susan's discovery, any remaining hope that the Martin family had survived began to fade, and when another young girl's body was found the very next day, that hope diminished even further. Her remains were identified as 13-year-old Virginia Martin, and an autopsy determined the official cause of death as drowning. Traces of aluminum were found on her clothing, which aligned with the tire tracks discovered earlier on the cliff. These tracks, along with the location where the rig had reported their anchor snagging, were directly opposite an aluminum smelting plant. Investigators believed the rig may have caught onto the door of the Martins' car, or possibly the car itself. Overturning it, this could have torn the door off, allowing 2 of the bodies to float out and drift downstream. A renewed search of the water turned up nothing, and after a near-tragic incident where a diver almost drowned, the efforts were ultimately called off. The fates of Kenneth, Barbara, and Barbie Martin remain a mystery to this day. Despite the tracks, the gun, and possible links to ex-convicts, investigators were never able to gather enough evidence from the scene or the autopsy reports to prove their theory. No one was ever formally charged in connection with the Martins' disappearances or deaths. That left the family's only surviving member, their son Donald, without answers as well. He had to wait the mandatory 7 years before he could claim any part of the family's estate. Finally, 8 years after their disappearance, he inherited their home and what remained in their bank accounts. With the investigation at a standstill, the bodies of Susan and Virginia Martin were cremated, but for over a decade, their remains went unclaimed. They remained in a crematorium until the death of their paternal grandmother. Only then were they finally collected by an unnamed individual who had been making funeral arrangements for her. And so, the story of the Martin family closes on perhaps its saddest note: 2 forgotten remains, left waiting for years, with no resolution to the mystery that claimed their lives.